Have a look at the central locking on my Clio. This is a 2003 Clio. Down, this is the rear passenger door. Not up. Locked, unlocked, locked, unlocked. That's annoying, really annoying. Every time I now have to reach inside and pull it up. That's irritating. I think it's the actuator inside the door. So I'm now going to try and take the door card off and find out if it's the actuator first of all, then order a new one if it is that and replace it. There is a small plastic piece down there which I'm going to be removing in a moment, and there is a Torx fitting in there as well. So I'm just going to do those now. I haven't taken this door apart just yet, so I'll be kind of making this up as I go along and finding out what works and what doesn't. This screw was a T27, and the one that was in the bottom of this, underneath the plastic little bung in there, was a T20. So I now need to unhook this cable from the back of that, so just twist it. That's the end of the rod, so that's the way you'd need to twist it, and it looks like that on the inside, so just twist that hole there so it releases from the end of the rod to open the door. Realistically, the only next thing I can think that needs to happen is this. It needs to be popped off here. So I will now attempt to break my door so that you don't have to break yours. I wonder if this will work. I know that I'll also have to prise under here as well in a moment, I'm sure, to release this all the way around the outside and then lift it upwards and over the locking catch there. Okay, that's just released with the pry bar. It just pushes on, it's a push fit onto these splines. So I'll now try to remove the door panel from around the outside without smashing it to pieces. I'm not really too worried about marks on this car. It's just an old commuter slag. You may be a lot more worried about your car. I've just managed to pull it loose. It is a series of clips around the lower side, so they each look like that there. A small white plastic bobble that goes inside that piece there. So you'll just need to reach around under the lower side there and pop them off. So there's one in the corner, one there, and then there's a few more on the back side as well, if you can see it. And my door was a little bit tough to pull off as well, because clearly it's the first time it's ever been off since being made, because this sticky sealant is still intact around the outside. It's pulling on the door. At the top you need to pull the door slightly upwards, the door card. It hooks behind that, so this line here in the plastic, this fold in the plastic, hooks behind each one of these, and then inside this rail here, this sort of plastic rail. So when you have it free down here, pull it away at the bottom and then lift upwards, and you'll need to pull it up past this as well. So door card removed, and having a look at this area now to try and find where the actuator lives, and it's just behind there next to the actual lock mechanism. I've removed this sort of plastic guard, maybe it is. It lived inside there, and there was just two clips holding it on, so all you need to do is press the two little tabs in you see there, and it will release from that hole and that hole. I needed or chose to just simply disconnect this rod from its location there, just pull it out of that one. I did the same for this one here too. That one is for the lock mechanism, and this other rod here is for the pull catch inside the car. So I've just released both of those from their catches. That allowed me to pull that piece of plastic out to get a bit better access. And the actuator itself is essentially just behind that white piece of plastic. You can't really see it well because of the light. Now there is a rubber bung which lives there. I've just pulled it out, and if you can see inside, yeah, do you see that concertina there? that is part of the actuator mechanism. It's the rod that pushes upwards there. So the only way I think I'm going to be able to remove this is just to take out the lock mechanism, which hopefully will be fairly straightforward. These 3 bolts are a T30, I think I'm right in saying. Yep, a T30. So I'm just going to whip these out now. I did try initially taking out the handle just there from the other side. Let's get that wiring head out of the way. It's a couple of bolts, and it didn't really help, to be honest, so I wouldn't really go down that route now. Maybe I'll take that off, it's not helping. The mechanism now is loose because I've removed the 3 Torx bolts that are on the outside. This piece of plastic, this guard here, stops the actuator, which is just there. You can see it there, and that's the sort of piston end of it. It stops it from being removed very easily. On the back face, just under here, but behind here, there is a screw which probably does go into the actuator. It's there. That's an 8mm screw, and it goes in like that from the back end. So that could be a bit of a pig to undo unless you've got a flex head ratchet spanner, which is what I used, which made it a lot easier. Access isn't terrible, but it's not ideal. Now that that's undone, I had a little bit more space, and all I've done really is disconnect the top part of the actuator from where it normally lives, which is not visible right now, but it hooks up onto the lever mechanism there in the centre of the shot, that circular part just there. That hooks over something. You just need to pry that out. I use this hole. This hole is quite helpful for prying that off. And then just a case of wiggling this plastic case or protector shroud away slightly and pulling this down past it. And I'm halfway out now. Here it is at the bottom. Oh, you'll also need to remove the connector plug at the bottom down there. That's what this wiring plug is. It presses in at that end there. So just press that in and pull it away. So I'm halfway through removing this at the moment. Just wanted to show you how it's coming out. It is a bit of a fight. So I've just managed to wiggle it out finally, and I've attached it back into the wiring loom here. So in a moment I'm going to have a test and see how it operates still, just to be sure. And I might well put a multimeter just in the ends of these to see if this is actually a signal problem, it's not getting through sometimes, or if it is the motor. In my experience, moving parts are normally the culprit rather than simply electronic signal failing. There's the movement of it. Sort of feels okay, it's not seized or anything, but I'll find out now. I'll lock and unlock the car and see what that does. Yeah, this is what we found when using the car. It sometimes has problems, sometimes doesn't. Sometimes, maybe for a week, it will work. And it looks like it is now, which is funny. Probably because I've been moving it and hitting it and bashing it around, it's just decided to work for a while. Doubtless it is probably faulty, though. I don't believe it's the signal. I've got no real reason to suspect that. I think, given that these are quite cheap, these actuators, yeah, given these are quite cheap, I'll probably just replace it and see if that cures the problem. Now, it's been a few weeks since I last filmed this regarding the door lock on my Clio. Partly for the part arriving, that didn't take too long, but also my busy life. I'm now trying to fit the door lock back on the car, so I've decided actually to remove it from in here. It just made things a little bit less fiddly. To do that, I decided I left these rods on because they looked a little fragile over this end, and I simply pushed in here the retaining clip, which where is it there? It looks like that. So I just pushed in those to pull that away, and then the rods just come away from the car, and this whole mechanism fits out that gap there with a little bit of wiggling. It just fits out that gap. So this really is just to give you a good idea of what the mechanism looks like with a really good view, not inside the car. So this is the replacement actuator mechanism, which I've just fitted to it now. And really what's important is the back side of this, because you won't see this easily in the car. So there's the screw with an 8mm hex head on it. That there is the little plastic hook which connects to your outside handle, and it's I don't know if we'll see this in the light. Yeah, so the end of that metal hook there, it clips into that, and that's the back of your handle there. So when you pull the handle down, that pushes that rod down like that. So that has to be disconnected in order to remove this, and getting it back on in situ in the car was a little difficult. Yeah, I was trying to in the car, and I will now be able to do it a bit more easy, because what I've done is taken off this cover, this white plastic cover that I was fighting with last time. I don't really see what it's there for, other than potentially some weather protection from long-term water dripping down over the mechanism. I'm not sure. I can't see any other real reason for it. It was getting in my way. It's big horrible thing to have to deal with in place. I've now attached the mechanism back in. I've already tried this on the car, the wiring on it. It certainly does work, so hopefully it will work long term. I'm now going to try and fit this back into the car. It's just basically a bit of wiggling. It's fairly straightforward. I can't remember the way I took it out now. Okay, fine. Yeah, that was easy enough. It certainly goes in that way. So I'm now going to try to sort of fit this back in and get everything clipped up. Most importantly, the handle mechanism at the back, because that's now hidden from me. It's around the back of this in here. That's quite difficult to do, but it should be a little easier now the white cover is removed. And conclusion, I fitted it in. It was reasonably simple, and I apologise for the light here. It's pretty bad. I've got some strong sunlight, some winter sunshine. So if you can see back there you go. I've managed, that's not a bad shot, is it? There is the rod from the lever, the handle outside, coming down, and it pushes into the hole there, pushes in there, and this plastic piece sort of, it's on a pivot, it comes back up and you push it, you clip it over there to help secure it, but really the power, the movement is done through the rod pushing backwards through that area there, and up there of course you just pull it down. So when you pull the handle, it moves down like that. So that's what it looks like behind. Just pull out to see where I was. This is now all mounted in position, and the whole lock is now mounted. That was easy. I now can see that fitting it back in and accessing everything in here is so much easier without where is it, this plastic piece. I'm going to live without that, hopefully. It won't cause me any problems, but I'll be living without it. So I've just put these in so far. I haven't really done them up properly tight just yet. I fed the cables back through their correct route, so pop in here, pop in there. Push this pin piece, this plastic pin piece back on there in the correct way. Be really gentle with this. If you crack the outside or crack this piece here, you'll only have to go and get another part, probably from Renault dealership. I don't think these will be available elsewhere, maybe from a scrapyard. But so just pop that on gently, and that is working on its own now fine. And the best bit, if I show you this, reliably working, and lovely, working well. So that was a fairly cheap fix. I will probably now have to do that to the other side as well, because the other side is intermittent, not working very well. But at least you can now see what's involved in changing one of the sides.